Hi guys, this is Mike back with this week's episode of Ask Me Anything Python, where I take questions from yourselves that you leave in the comments down below and I try to answer them as best as I can. This week we've got questions from a couple of guys who basically asked what kind of applications can be done using Python and Django and which is best, Python and Django or Ruby on Rails. First of all, we've got Anselmo Blanco Dominguez, and he says, "Hi Mike, I just found you on the web. I've been I've been doing Django long ago in my few free hours. I've done basic tutorials and short courses online. Now I would like to get a Django project useful for my work, but it is not yet clear to me that this is a good choice for applications that I need, such as inventory control and, shall we say, a mini ERP. That's because I refer to applications with complex entries and entry screens that change many tables at once. You can indicate some tutorial or course that focuses on this type of application out instead of mini blogs, CRMs and Twitter-like applications." Basically what we're asking here is, can Django do something like an ERP system, and also can it do inventory control? And the answer is yes, it can. There are a couple of modules that I did, rather that I found, that if you just basically go into Google and type in Django ERP, then you'll quite easily find it. And I've put the links down below in the description. So if you want to check that out, you can basically install it, and it'll install using pip. So there's no having to download source code or anything like that. The other one is the Django Inventory, I think it's called Django Inventory, and that will basically install the same, and you can just download the code, customize it to whatever you need, and you more or less have a fully working inventory system. Very little coding involved, you just install it and there you go. Django's that flexible, so you can pretty much do a Google and find pretty much what you want, or something very near to it. So the next one is from Aniket Patil, and he says, "Hey Mike Hibbert, I know Python, so I want to make web applications, so I want to use Python. So which is better, Python with Django or Ruby in Rails, or Ruby with Rails?" The answer is they're not necessarily better than each other. If you know anything about me, you know that I work in both. I work in Django and Python, but I also work in Ruby on Rails, and I work in a number of other languages as well. When it comes to developing applications for those different platforms, I cannot honestly say, in my experience, that they're better than each other. They have a different way of doing things, but that doesn't necessarily mean they're worse. However, I would say that it's possibly more memory hungry when you're using Ruby on Rails. If you're not using a very big server that's got lots of memory, I think Python would fare better on that. In fact, I think Python generally runs better on much lower memory systems, so it's less memory intensive and therefore better in using the resources on your server. Okay, so this week I'm going to introduce a new idea of my featured Python module, just because I think that some modules people don't necessarily know about, and I think it's very important that we have a little spot like this where we can show something new that you might not have found that you might find useful. This week I'm going to be featuring a module called Arrow. Now Arrow deals with dates, and how to manipulate dates, like date time objects and all that sort of stuff. Arrow's much more simple at doing that sort of thing. So here's a little rundown that I'm going to do in the terminal, and tell me what you think in the comments down below. If you think it's a great idea or whether you disagree and we should all just stick to date time objects, let me know what you think. Here goes. So here we are at the Arrow's website, and basically it says better dates and times for Python. Now if you've used the date time objects and the time manipulation systems in Python, you probably think, well, they're alright, but to be honest, they're not necessarily very intuitive. And to simplify that, Arrow was invented. Now, how does it actually simplify the whole process? Well, let's take you through a little bit of a guide on how this works. So I've created a virtual environment just for us to try out things. Now, the first thing you need to know is just how to install Arrow, and it's as simple as going pip install Arrow on your system. Now that makes it dead easy for you to install it into whatever project you're going to be using. Now once it's installed, you can then go ahead and just use Python, and the way that you bring in Arrow to use it is to basically do import Arrow. From there you can then use Arrow to create Arrow time objects. So here's a basic one for you. We'll say A is the object we're going to create, and we basically go arrow.now, and Arrow will give us the time. Now inside of there we get a number of things for free. So we can automatically have a date time object. So if you're dealing with things like time stamps and created at and updated at fields within your Django database, then this is the object you'll want, and that'll give you that bog standard date time object for free. You'll also get a date object. You'll also get a time object, and all basically because we're using Arrow. So you can also get the year and the day and various other little properties in there. So it's dead simple to access those parts, whereas previously you would have to break down the date time object and basically try to pull out each individually. You can now just do it as if it's a bog standard object that can tell you the time with the year and convert to different formats very simply. So what else can you do? Well, we've got we can create objects in a different way. We can say arrow get, and say we do 2016 like that. Arrow will generate that using the year, month and day. We've also got stuff like we can use arrow get to create something from a timestamp. So let's just see if I can create a genuine timestamp number. So something like 13679000664, and Arrow will give us from that timestamp like that. However, if you haven't got it in the format of an integer, you can also pass it in a string. It'll do the same. If you've got it in a previous format that's in a floating point number, it'll do that for you too. If you've got it in a floating point number but it's in a string format, no problem. Whoops. Then there you go. For instance, if you are pulling out an object from a database, chances are you're likely to get it out from something like a MySQL connection. It'll come out as a date-time object. So say we've got a date-time object, and let's just for convenience take the date-time from there. So our DTO is now a date-time object that has values in it. If later we wanted to create another or convert from that date-time object back into an arrow version so that we can do the whole conversion through to things, then we can do something like this. So let's say new A equals arrow dot get, and we'll just pass in a date-time object, and it automatically knows how to convert that date-time object into an arrow object that we can then manipulate. So that's nice that we can pull in different formats of dates from Python in the various different formats that Python already supports, and we can easily convert it. But there are also things you can do once you've actually converted it. So for instance, we have this new date. We can humanize it. And that'll give us a human readable version of it. If we take, for instance, A equals arrow dot now, which gives us the current date, or if we then use the humanize, it gives us seconds ago. However, it also has a function that's called replace, and if we say weeks equals -2 weeks, we get that object out, but we can also call humanize on there. "14 days ago." So you can see there, by adding in this extra replace command, we can easily manipulate dates so that we can count back in time. So all in all, you can see Arrow is a really great tool to have. It's really worth learning. So there you have it. That's the Arrow module. Now, if you'd like me to feature your module and you're part of some open source team that deals with that sort of thing, I'm more than happy to do that. So you can give me some kind of contact. You can get me on Twitter, or you can get me on Gmail or Google+. In addition, if you have any questions about Python in any shape or form, just leave us a comment down below and I'll do the best I can. So that's the end. If you enjoyed this episode, then click the like button down below. If you enjoyed or want to hear more about this series and the next episode, which comes out usually about every Friday or a Saturday, mostly Saturdays though, then click the subscribe button and you'll get a notification as soon as the next one's out. Thanks for watching.